Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. I'm your host, Mark DeMeo. I'm here with my co-host tonight, sitting in Mike Cologne. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Mark, always good to be here. We had a great show on tap for tonight. Very interesting show, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is probably one of the best shows we're ever going to do. Our guest tonight is a 911 dispatcher for the Chicago PD, and on August 7th, 2021, that was the night that Chicago police officer Ella French was shot in the line of duty. Her partner, Carlos Yanez Jr., he was in critical condition. It was a result of a car stop going horribly wrong. The dispatcher at that night, Keith A. Thornton, handled everything as best as you can. They called it calmly, professionally. It was nothing short of heroic. And we want to welcome him to here tonight. What's up, Keith? How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Mike and Mark, and everyone who's viewing? It's a pleasure to be here. I'm pretty excited to talk about everything that took place that day because it provides an insight as to what officers go through, what first responders go through, what dispatchers go through, but more importantly, how community can get involved to see what really is taking a part in our reality.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I was a police officer for 20 years. I just wanted to, so I get the lingo, and most of our audience has was law enforcement or has family that's law enforcement or just big fans of law enforcement. So there you go, right there. Take me back to you were obviously from Chicago originally, right? You grew up in what? I'm trying to what part?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll
What
tell
part?
you all about it. I was born and raised in Chicago. I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago back in 1988. Greatest year. And
Is that when you were
as
born?
I
Is
that's
that
when
when
I
you
was
were
born.
really? Oh my god! I graduated high
Yeah.
school in '85.
Oh my God. Well, there you go.
uh,
Uh, anyhow, when I was 3 years old, I can remember back when I was, living on the west side, and it's a rundown area, a lot of gangs and drugs and whatnot. When I was 3 years old, we experienced a fire next door at my neighbor's house. And the first thing I can remember is as my dad and my family were pulling me outside of the house with everyone inside of our big apartment building, is the building that was burning next door, police officers showed up, firemen showed up. And so I got to see these heroes pulling people out, and it was wonderful. And I'm like, who the heck are these people? And I, from that moment on, I had to get a scanner. And this was like 3 or 4 years old as I was growing up. So that's when I knew what I wanted to do when I got a little bit older. And I wanted to do it really quick. So right around the age of 10 years old, I started volunteering in Chicago at the fire stations on a consistent basis. And then that grew into me going into an EMT since 2007. I worked on the ambulance for many years. And then I wound up leaving Chicago for a short period, well, almost 10 years. And I became an LAPD police officer. So I did work in South Central. I did all types of different things, a beat officer, narcotics, vice, undercover work. And so I really got an understanding as to the other side of what officers see as opposed to what citizens are seeing. And then back in 2018 is what led me back to Chicago. I wanted to be closer to the family. And then I got a management position at the Emergency Management Communication Center in Chicago, which is where I currently am a 911 dispatcher.
wow, I didn't know you were a police officer in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Um, I did read about your fascination with the fire department. I used to go there at a young age and clean the trucks and just do help them with cooking the food and stuff like that. And it's interesting when you can find your calling at such a young age and know that what you're interested in. Do you still have a longing to be a police officer, or
Well, I did. And like I said, God has just taken me on this path of I just want to be a fireman. That was the first thing and only thing I wanted to be. I don't want to be anything else. But he had different plans for me. He bounced me over to the ambulance. And the officers and the firemen, paramedics at this station, they said, hey, we're going to put you through school, in a certain program. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with blood. But I wound up doing it, and I was decent at my job, and I did well. But then God bounces me from that. And then, I actually went to go start teaching as an instructor at a high school for 3 years. And I dealt with behavioral students. And those students were the ones who inspired me to go and be a police officer. Never was on my agenda, but they said, Mr. Thornton, you have a way of speaking with individuals and you're realistic with them. And, all of these kids were, considered like the demos and the dropouts and the ones who were arrested. And so in order for them to graduate, they had to go through me. And they said, you always expected us. You should become a cop. So I became one, and I was great at my job, loved it. But he bounced me over here now, so I don't think it's me wanting to necessarily go back out there at this time. I think when I was out there, I was making great differences, and I believe 99.99% of officers are out there doing exactly what I've done. You know, we all help and contribute in our own way, but it's not seen out there in the media. And for that 1% of horrible officers who are out there doing the wrongdoing, you know, we do have them, but that's in every profession. But it's broadcasted at the masses with the media, and it just trickles down the effect to every great officer out there. And so, me looking back in my history of law enforcement of just so much negativity, someone like myself, I feel as though I need to elevate where I can make a positive difference. You know, bringing people together and letting them know, hey, this side is this and this side is this, but bringing people together, and that's what I want to do.
You know, I'm curious, working in Los Angeles, it's such a unique environment in that there is the Hollywood aspect to it. There is the glitz and the glamour, and there is Rodeo Boulevard, as we know. But there's also that undercurrent, and specifically, and I know this from when Bill Bratton was out there, there was a lot of gang violence, particularly, you know, Compton's notorious for that. Seeing that firsthand, I guess this is a two-part question. A, what brought you to Los Angeles, given the fact that the Chicago Police Department certainly has plenty of action in its own right? And B, where do you think it all goes wrong for the youth that eventually gets involved in that notorious gang culture? Where does it start, in your estimation?
Well, that's a huge question there. It's very big, but I'll answer it step by step. You cut out a little bit too, so if I miss some, just shoot it back at me. But why did I go to Los Angeles? Well, I wanted to stay in Chicago, and I applied for the police department out here, and they were going to hire me. Academy date was set up and everything, but right within 2 weeks of me getting ready to start the academy here, they were in a transitional period of getting a new Chicago Police Department superintendent. They wound up getting Jody Weiss, who came from the FBI. And the moment he stepped in, it was right when I was about to start the academy. And he said, absolutely not, stop and freeze all hiring. And we want more mature candidates, and they have to be 25 years of age. Well, I was like 23 years old. And I said, absolutely not. I am not waiting anymore. I've been waiting my whole life since like 10 years old. I'm not waiting anymore. So I jumped on New York, actually. I went out to New York. Unfortunately, I came right back. I did not like the atmosphere, but I didn't like
Smart
it.
decision.
I got off. No, I didn't like it. I was like, oh no, this is not for me, you know, but I did apply for the fire department, was hoping for that out there, but it didn't happen. But LA picked me up within a matter of 4 months, and boy, you know, you said it right, you know, Compton and Watts and all these different areas where I choose to go and work, where I chose to go. I loved every minute of it. And one thing that I knew, but I also learned was these areas had a majority African Americans and Latinos out in these areas living there, and most of them were great people. These were not people running around shooting. These were not people whatever. That, you know, I'm thinking I'm going to a war zone. These people cut their grass. You know, they're picking up trash. You know, and I'm looking around, and it's just several different issues. You have a prostitution issue out there. You have a high crime issue out there. And those were like from the drug dealers and the gangbangers who were coming into these neighborhoods. Many of them didn't even live in South Central. They live elsewhere, but they come there on a daily basis, and they own those territorial blocks. And the last thing that is an issue there is you have just a lot of filth and trash everywhere. So Bill Bratton, who I just met this last week in Boston at the Brotherhood of the Fallen event, he's a great guy, such a mentor as to why I even went to LAPD. I love that he really went with his criminal mindset of the broken windows theory. And I truly believe it has changed the culture and the dynamics of Los Angeles. If you go there now to Compton has really cleaned itself up. South Central is on a better road to correcting itself. And now I feel like Chicago is what LA used to be. But there is nothing going on here in terms of accountability for these violent criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
And so, and also, you did have another part to that question. The other part of that question is, how do we get the youth to change, the ones who are already sucked into this gang violence? And it's not easy. I mean, it's got to come from all type of avenues. It has to come from everyone says the police department, this and that. I mean, there's only so much the police can do. And let's get it straight. Police officers, although they act in a mentality of wear this different hats of social worker and this person, some going on their off time, buying food and doing different things, yes, they do these things, but that's not their job. Officers' job is out there to protect and to serve. But officers, as I know it and many others know it, they're doing so many great other things to help the community. But we need more than that. And it's kind of tossed negatively when things are going sideways. The crime is out of control, but the politicians have to get involved. The teachers have to get involved, the schools. There has to be more programs inside of these neighborhoods. And parenting is the big thing. Parenting's the big thing. And if that's not helping, and if they don't have parents, or, maybe the parents are young or they're caught in the system, there just has to be more resources out there to even teach this is how you mentor and this is how you parent. So it has to come from a totality of different community aspects to help these children come out of this situation, because it was never like this for me growing up at all. There's a lack of respect and it's gone.
And this is talking right now is Keith. We're talking with Keith Thornton. I'm with my co-host Mike Colon, and Keith was the 911 dispatcher working for the Chicago Police Department on the night of August 7, 2011, when
2021.
2021, when police officer Ella French was killed, and her partner Carlos Yanez Jr. was also shot in critical condition. I think that things happen for a reason. You sound like a God-fearing man, and God put you in the right spot, because we're going to listen to the 911 call shortly. But I just want to say that, people are going to realize what you did there was true. You saved probably more lives as well. Who knows? So many, as a former cop, I can tell you, so many car accidents happen on the way to going to what we call it 1013 over here in New York. I think you guys call it 101, right? What is
Correct.
it, 101?
10-1. A 10-1 is an officer down or officer needs help. When you call a 10-1, you clear that frequency and everyone goes. If you're on a toilet somewhere, if you're eating somewhere, if you're in the office doing paperwork, if you're on a basic call, you drop everything and you go.
All right. So we in New York, it's 1013. When you hear 1013 over the radio, it's something bad has happened, and a lot of times it's scary, because when you hear the beginning of the call, you hear somebody running, and the running, the breathing, all that stuff is amplified. It's coming over a mic. You can't see it. It's all in your brain. It's imagery that you're putting together in your head. But let's just we're gonna take the listen right now, and it's truly it's so sad. I just want to brace everybody.
I do want to. I was going to say just that for the audience before Mark plays it. I do want to say for those of you that will listen to this is not for the faint of heart. So if you are squeamish and if you are uncomfortable, I advise that maybe you exit the broadcast momentarily and return later.
Can you see it?
6-3 and Bell. Give me some units. 6-3 and Bell. Keep the air clear. Who is this and what you got? All right, Blue Cubs jersey, Mel Black. He's running 6-3 and Bell. 76-37 after you got the air. Mel Black's the Blue Cubs jersey. What's he wanted for? 6-3 and Bell. Please. 6-3. Mel Black, Blue, what you got? Blue. Down. I got an officer down. 10-1, 6-3 and Bell. Officer down, shots fired at the police. Officer down, Mel Black, a Blue Cubs jersey. He's shot at the police. 6-3 and Bell. Give me some units. 7-1-3. Stay off my air. Everybody stay off the air. I got an officer down, 6-3 and Bell. Start rolling. I got an officer down, 6-3 and Bell. Officer down, 6-3 and Bell. Give me some units. I want a perimeter set up in the location looking for a Mel Black and a Blue Cubs shirt. A Blue Cubs shirt with a Mel Black. Perimeter set up 2 blocks east north. Okay, I got a all black. Give me 2 ambulances needed. 2 officers down. 7637 Adam. 10-4, we got him coming. 6-1 boy. Get those officers right there. 6-3 and Bell. I want a perimeter set up 3 blocks north, south, east, west of that location. I got a Mel Black in a blue shirt. Mel Black in a blue shirt. Cubs jersey. Officers down. Somebody gets over there. We got paramedics coming. 2 ambulances. 10-4, we got them coming, baby. We got them coming. Stay off the air. I want people looking, guys. Last team, stop out for the location. Got a Mel Black in a blue jersey. 61, you're on the scene. I want a helicopter. Guys, 63-29 Bo. 10-4. 10-4, we got PH1. We rolling, guys. Female with the emergency, go in it. Slow it down. We got 2 in custody. 2 officers shot. Stop the car there, guys. Stop the car at the temple. Guys, listen. Got 2 officers down. We need a perimeter, guys. 6-3. We got 2 in custody right now. 2 in custody. I need a perimeter, guys. Start a route to the hospital. Give me CH1. We're going to UFC Hospital. UFC Hospital, set me up a perimeter to UFC Hospital, guys. Give me a route. Go ahead, 6-3, you're going from 63rd. Take it all the way east 1 to 63rd, 10-4, 6-3. We're going to take it eastbound. Are we taking both officers, guys? Get us to 10-1-6-3 in Bell. We're transporting both officers to UFC Hospital. I want all of 63 going eastbound. Stop. All traffic eastbound 63 stops. I got 2 officers down. We're taking to the hospital. Give me a perimeter and stop all of those streets. Who's got a route for me? Talk to me. Good. All the way to 63 and West End. All the way down to 60 and Dandy. Everything needs to be crossed on both sides. Get us back to the 10-1. I need a route set up. Eastbound 63. Eastbound 63. Take it down to Western. Take it down to Western. All traffic eastbound 63 to Western. We're taking it to UFC for the 10-1 to officer stop. What are we going to Holy Cross? We have an officer in our car. We're going to UFC with him. We're going down to 63rd to state to 5555 over. Listen to me, officer. Officer's going to Holy Cross. That's down a trauma center. We got to get him to a trauma center, guys. Take him to UFC there, trauma center. Go to UFC. Don't go to Holy Cross. Down a trauma center. Take them both to UFC for now. UFC. Follow the officer. Approaching 63rd Halstead. Approaching 6-3 in Halstead now. 6-3 in Halstead. All units 6-3, Damon and Western Block. We're going to UFC. Service officer. Okay, we got you guys. Just call out the locations of where you're at. UFC is notified. 731, what's the condition of stand by? 731, what's the condition? That's your partner Rap, P.O. Rap, he's with us. P.O. Rap, what's the condition of the officer in your vehicle? He's talking right now, squad. Okay, 10-4. Whoever had my other officer, what's the condition, guys? 736, she's not responsive, she's unconscious. She's looking for from the base. I'm heading right now north on 63rd and Halstead, about 60 steps down to east to UFC. Alright, 10-4. We got him going, guys. First squad, not my first. Okay, listen to me. Take that damn vest off right now and start compression. Start breathing, whatever we gotta do. Start it now. While you're driving, the officer in the back with her, take the vest off and start compression now. You got the air. 736, compression started almost 15 minutes ago. Okay, excellent. Keep it rolling, baby. Keep it rolling. We got it coming. They know you're coming in. And units that are at UFC Hospital, have those doors open for me. Have them open, guys. Have them ready. Go ahead, boy. Boy, we got the male officer here. They got him in the CL right now. Side door to the emergency room is open. Bring him to the emergency room side. Right, bring him to the emergency room side, guys. Guys, male officers going to the ER. Bring him to the emergency room. And the other female officer, please get her in there, guys. Make it quick. Be safe getting there, but make it quick. Part 3, repeat that last transition. Shot in the head between the eyes. Both officers are responsible in the hospital. You'll see. Keep the air clear. We have 2 in custody. These are only guys that were shooting guys in custody. 6-foot boy, 6'3", I put the other one in custody. The gun being guarded by my partner, so we can get these two over here to recover. Are these both the guys who shot? Are these both our offenders? The fourth button.
Where do you even begin?
Well, let's start from.
We begin by saying rest in peace to my sister who was killed in the line of duty that day, and that's Ella French. So anyone who's listening, if you guys could just take a quick moment to just remember our sister who was just doing her job.
Yes.
Several things jumped off at me. First of all, like as a former police officer and being involved in situations, 1013s, like you said, 10-1s, your calm demeanor, obviously. The fact that you knew which hospital to go to was very, very important. A lot of people don't realize that not every hospital is equipped to handle gunshot. You need a trauma center. And Holy Cross was not a trauma center. You were directing them to another hospital. And that, that's key, especially maybe for the second officer, Carlos Yanez. Obviously, we heard at the end of that tape that she was shot between the eyes. And they had started CPR. Well, another thing that you mentioned, too, was take off the vest and start the compressions. And he mentioned to you that we did that a while ago. And but with the way you're doing, a lot of people may not realize as well is you're directing, you're giving the location of the cars that are en route to the hospital, and you're finding out how far away they are, so other units can block off the streets that are coming up to block them off from. So basically, you park on the corner, you stop traffic, so these cars can just have the right of way and get to the hospital as quick as possible. That's the fact that you were a police officer, also fascinated with the fire department. You knew the hospital because you worked at the EMS. All these things is a trifecta of knowledge for somebody as a dispatcher.
That's what I said. I've questioned God many times within my life, all for not anything negative, because I truly love him and I'm very good with spiritual being. But I've always said, hey, why are you bouncing me from firemen? This is what I want to do. What I kind of said earlier. Then he goes on to the EMS thing, and then he goes on to the police thing. And then I land here, and they gave him my answer that night, right at that 9 o'clock hour. I knew why I had done all of this stuff and all this experience and background for the last 20 years prior to this. And it was because God knows the answer, and he puts us in these situations where we are always questioning things, and we shouldn't, but he knows our blueprint. And I only knew about that hospital being that way because it's Holy Cross, and it's because I used to be on the ambulances out there. I used to volunteer and work out there with these paramedics, and they would have me as a young black man, 10 to 15, 16 years old, allowing me to go on a computer when we're transporting patients to a stroke center or a burn center or a trauma center or just a regular medical facility. So I learned these things, and that's why I kind of had that. The whole perimeter, setting up a perimeter to catch these guys, that's not my job as a dispatcher. We are parrots. We're supposed to kind of just repeat what we're told, and that's it, and I'm kind of against that, for regular dispatching on a typical day, yes, but when all hell breaks loose like this, with the background of me being in certain situations as a LAPD police officer, the first thing when we start chasing someone and you lose them, you set that perimeter up. That's the officer's job. We don't even wait for an incident commander. And in Chicago, that's kind of how the style is set up. You wait for that sergeant or lieutenant to come out of the station and get there, but we're so short manpower here. Sometimes you don't even have a sergeant or a lieutenant working in the area. So I was not going to wait for some incident commander to get there. The moment he said this guy was running southbound with this great description and this officer is down right here, two of them, I'm relying on my map now. And I see two tactical units kind of like coming like this right up to my nose. And that's where the officers were shot. And I said, you guys handle those officers, because I know officers are going to do what they got to do, period. But then when I called that 10-1, now you have this amount of people coming. And I said, well, why are we going to bombard these officers when they're already taken care of? Let those primary units do that. And let me start delegating the perimeter here. And that's what they did. They formulated that box, 2 blocks in every direction. And they caught these guys within a matter of a minute and a half. And that was just a blessing. It was just a blessing, because usually that does not happen.
I wanted to ask you, and Keith Thornton is our guest here on Police Off the Cuff After Hours. He is Mark DeMeo. I'm Mike Colon. There is something in these moments of great distress and panic that is called fog of war. Tom Von Essen, the former fire commissioner here in New York, who's a personal friend of mine, mentioned this, that the day of 9/11, when he was trying to calculate how many men he had lost in the towers, Mayor Giuliani had to snap him back into focus, because there's that moment where you're just in a daze and everything is moving so fast, but yet you feel like you're moving so slow because of the gravity of the situation. As a dispatcher, how important is not letting that fog of war cloud your vision, or cloud your mentality in that moment. And when you're calculating the grave danger that has occurred, especially with Officer French, I can hear your voice cracking at the end. How do you keep your composure in moments that are so stressful?
Well, before I even spoke to any type of media, it was just circulating that here's the guy, the calm voice who was on the radio. And I honestly, to this day, don't believe I was calm at all. I was absolutely not calm. I was sad. I was angry. I was cursing out loud when I would get off the air. So we have a pedestal. When we click down on that pedestal, kind of like when you're accelerating in a car, you click down on the pedestal. Well, you guys can hear us, but when I come off of that pedal, you don't hear me. So I was saying all types of things. I'm crying. I did have a partner that day as well. And all those different things I'm screaming on the radio. I need a helicopter. I need this. I need this. The hospital. How far are you guys? She was on the phone, making those notifications, and that's Patricia Bounds. She's equally a hero in this, and let me tell you something about her, and this is once again how God works. She is an former police officer as well. She was a police lieutenant out in Mississippi. And her and I never really worked together. She and I never really worked together. She actually works Zone 6 in Chicago as a permanent dispatcher there. She's assigned there. Me, I kind of bounce all around. I'm kind of like the substitute teacher. So I'm on the north side, I'm on the west side, I'm on the south side, then I go downtown. I move everywhere. I work every single zone throughout the city. So every day I'm somewhere different. But I'm never really on Zone 6. And then that day, me and her, the only two former officers as dispatchers in our entire facility, our entire organization on that watch on that particular day, we were together. And we were so in tune as if we were both out there. And it just, I just thank God for having us there. As crappy as the situation was and catastrophe, it's just crazy. How do two former officers who never worked together, who never worked in the same zone, were there at the same exact moment on that night?
Before we continue, we do want to acknowledge the live chat, who is so instrumental to us. Of course, we want to say hello to some people here. We have, of course, Peter Pranzo, the great lieutenant, an NYPD lieutenant retired himself and an author. He is here, as is Richella Pranzo. Sarah Claire is here. Nancy Eileen, Polka Dot Suzanne, Jen Lowe, a constant. Linda Petrovich says it is humbling and amazing how God brings those who need to be there together at the same time. Marie Green, she's a member. We also have McVee here. And looking, Holy Cats is here as well. I love that name. And we would like to remind people before we continue as well, we have a Patreon.com/police off the cuff. Hit that up and hit us up with the super chat. If you hit us up with the super chat, we'll read your question. We'll highlight it there. Mark will do the honors, and we'll try to get any question that you may want to ask Keith up in here. Mark.
All right. So back to the call here. It's funny that you said you never worked Zone 6 because I don't think you never walked that street before. You're completely basically flying blind, right? That wasn't your area at all.
No, I was born on the west side of Chicago. So when I first came out, I wanted to just be assigned to what's called Zone 12 or any west side zone because I know at the back of my hands, But that's the reason why I decided to start relieving and bouncing all around the city. And even though I've never been out in that area on the south side, I tend to study the map and do different things, even on my downtime. And people have questioned that. Why do you do that? And it's not, well, mind your business. I have a certain work ethic. I have my own work ethic, and some people think it's lame, but I'll listen to the fire radio. I'll listen to the EMS radio because I love to know knowledge. And this is a pure example as to why that's important. I really, really believe that dispatching training should really incorporate all of these different things. The fire and police department should know each other's lingo, and we really need to come together more because of situations like this, including 9/11.
Right. And I do the same exact thing. I'm not involved in law enforcement. I have family that's been law enforcement and friends, but I'm a buff. We call that being a buff. I'm sure you've heard the term. Yes. Same thing. I'm a buff with a capital B for the police and the fire department as well. And I wanted to ask you this, our friend Mark Bilcannon often references this on his show, about he calls it the Brian Watkins moment. What he's referring to is back in 1990, when crime was at its worst in New York. There was an incident involving Brian Watkins, who was a tourist from Utah here to see the U.S. Open. There's some people trying to mug his mom in the subway. He intervenes. He's stabbed to death. And that's when people collectively said, okay, that is enough. We need to do something about crime in the city. It's getting ridiculous. Is something similar going on in Chicago in the aftermath of Officer French's murder?
Well, I think a lot of, let's be very clear, officers that are killed in the line of duty happens every single day throughout America. And it's very sad. And these are just regular people like me. I've been a police officer, and I could have gone, I've been in situations where my life was almost taken, and the dispatcher was the only one to save me, or a helicopter in the sky, so I get it. But some people don't know that. All throughout this country, every single day, there is an officer killed in the line of duty. And I think what hit a little bit different in this situation, it's just like regular crime. I'll give you an example real quick. When I'm dispatching and we get a regular person shot, which, by the way, happens every freaking hour within Chicago, it used to be men that were shot. That was it. You never heard about females getting shot. You never heard about children or infants getting shot. It was non-existent. And now you hear female shot, and boom, there's an uproar. What, it's crazy. Or a child shot, so it's an uproar. That same uproar needs to be there, period, for whomever that's shot or any violent crime happening, but it's not there. But I think the same thing kind of happened in Ella's incident, because she was a female, and it's like, what? So that was something, and she was a Latina, they got more Hispanics involved in looking more into law enforcement as well. But for me, I can only speak for myself. I never met Ella, but I honestly believe, I truly feel her spirit within me every single day now, just meeting her mother and her family and her brother and all of the officers out there who have told me so many great stories about her. I feel her in me, and I made one promise to her, and I said, I'm not going to let your name go in vain. Whatever I have to do, it's going to always be positive, and I'm going to fight and continue fighting for what I've always done, but for what you continue doing all the way until that day. And so I've come up with an initiative here that's called Heal Chicago. It's my movement that I'm starting. And it's basically bringing people together, blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians, gay, straight, Democrat, Republican, North Side, West Side, South Side, or all the way in the suburbs. It doesn't matter. If you want, look, I got the shirt on, come together. I want people to come together, because that essentially is what has to happen here in Chicago, and it has to happen throughout this country. This place is so divided right now. And whether you realize it or want to admit it or not admit it, we need a lot of help, and I'm not one to just sit around and not do anything. I'm here to say, hey, you want to help? Come to the table. Actually, right now, right after this thing, I have a group of people who are coming that wants to talk to me, but all of them are at work today. So I said, well, I'm available now. They're not. They're at work. So they said, hey, how about 10:30 we go out at night? So I said, well, sure. So tonight at 10:30, I'm actually going out to a restaurant with about 15 different people who all have regular jobs, who are not getting paid, but they want to help. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And I move throughout all of the city, north side, west side, south side, and I do all types of things, from cleaning neighborhoods to mentoring students and children and adults, to bringing resources of domestic violence or rape suspects or victims, and we're doing counseling for them. We bring police officers to the scene to do better community outreach, because people need these resources in the area. They need jobs in the area. So they don't know. Some people don't even leave their bubble. They don't know, even going across town. That's nothing. You guys are in different states, and here I am. I just flew to Boston. I flew to New York. I'll do those things. But some people don't even leave their block. They don't leave their block. So you can't just blame them and say, well, they should do that. No. Bring the people to them. Bring the resources to them. And that's what I'm doing here. And from there, you teach them, like, hey, it's okay. And you train them and you help them, but no one starts out knowing everything. So you have to get out and involved. And that's where the politicians come in. And I'm very vocal with that. They could be doing the very same things that many people throughout Chicago, regular Joe Schmoes like me off the street, they could be doing these things and getting involved with their constituents and their citizens and neighbors, but they're not.
You are not. You are far from a regular Joe Schmo. Okay, so don't belittle yourself. You're doing a lot of fantastic things there. Before you came on the show, Mike and I had a discussion. Because rather than spring the video up on you that we played with the 911 call, I was concerned yesterday, and Mike brought it up today. Maybe he doesn't want to relive it again. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe he doesn't want to go through it again, even though it's available on YouTube. You don't have to watch it. So we asked you before we signed on, and it brings me to this point. You know, police officers have to deal with PTSD, firemen as well. I would imagine EMS. Nobody ever talks about the dispatcher who is listening on not just the calls that are happening in one command, but they're all citywide. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about you guys. You said you bounced around through all these different places. Are you all located in one building, doing different boroughs or different, like you said, west side, different sides? Or do you actually have to go to like a location somewhere in that zone and there's a 911 operator there? Is you like
Well,
you?
number one, we have one 911 center here in Chicago. Places like Los Angeles, a whole lot bigger. They have 3 911 centers in their entire city. But here in Chicago, we have one facility. And on our operations floor, we have on one side of the floor is all police. On the other side, you have fire/EMS. So we have a ton of dispatchers working, and I'll explain what they do. And then we have what's called call takers. So we have those on both sides. So the moment someone actually calls 911, it goes to a call taker, a 911 call taker. And the call taker's job, whether a police or EMS/fire call taker, they are to say, hey, what's going on? What's the address? Give me a suspect description. Do you need an ambulance? Okay, you're unconscious. Would you like to start CPR for this person? Those guys are the ones who are hearing nonstop people in their worst moments calling in. You, citizens, us. You know, I don't know if any of you, I know a lot of us work within this field, but even though no matter how consumed you are in your field and how good you are at your job and how much you see over and over again, when you're the victim on the other line of being robbed or in a car accident or something, sometimes you can't think. You're so narrow-minded. And so it's the job of that call taker to calm you down and to reassure you that help is on the way by getting your location and pertinent details. So that's job number one. Job number two is the moment they push enter and they get all that information, it shoots over to what's called a dispatcher, a 911 dispatcher. So obviously, if it's a fire EMS dispatcher, they'll dispatch a fire truck or a fire ambulance. It's very routine and very organized, you know, on the fire side, because they just click here, it's this address, this fire station, the closest, they're going. Very structured. Nothing structured with the law enforcement side of things, nothing structured with the police department side of a dispatcher, because we're not dealing with fires. We're not dealing with, you know, a medical problem where you go to a school and kind of learn, okay, this is what you're doing. Let's get them to the hospital, pass them off. No, we're dealing with human beings, people. And none of us are the same. We don't know if that person has a weapon. We don't know what's going on. We don't know if they have a mental health issue. There's so many things that officers have to deal with. And so as a dispatcher, when we're dispatching that job out to officers, all day we're talking back and forth to officers. So when they have emergencies and foot pursuits and 10-1s, that's what we're doing. We're working with them. So those are the different jobs we have, and we're all in the same building on the same operations floor. And when you say moving around, we have different councils. So, you know, the north side is kind of like the back row. Then you have the west side, and then the downtown, and then south side towards the front of the room. So it's just different councils that we move around to. But let me tell you, when you're in some of these zones, it's like you are in your own little world, because it could be popping and blazing over here, shots fired, 20 people shot, no exaggeration there, by the way. And then if you walk over to the north side and go to that zone, it may be 0 calls on the board, where, you know, the person calling in is just saying, hey, there's a guy walking his dog off the leash and the dog just pooped in my yard. So that's a difference that you can have right here in Chicago. And it's funny, but it's not funny, because these are the differences that some neighborhoods and some cultures are dealing with right here within one city. And this is not a just Chicago problem, but it's a multitude of cities throughout the country that deal with these same issues.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. I didn't mean to cut you off, Mark. A couple of things, and plus we have a question in the chat that somebody wants to ask you. Mark's in New York City. He's in the Bronx. You're in Chicago. I'm in New Haven, Connecticut. You know, the nickname for New Haven used to be Gun Wave in New Haven back in the day, because where I live, it's quiet. I'm fine. You go by where Yale University is quiet, but we have our hoods. One off of exit, it's called the 8. There's the Trey, and there's the Ville, which stands for New Hallville. You don't want to be there at certain times of night because it's just what you said by Yale. All is well. There's just probably a couple of drunk Yale kids coming out the bar and just have them go home. But you
sometimes they have gang wars over there, Keith, and it's the lacrosse. The lacrosse team against the LL Bean crew. The LL Bean crew is supposed to be vicious, by the way. They don't even wear socks with their loafers. I gotta tell you.
You'd be surprised though, but like meanwhile you go over to the Ville and there's shots being exchanged and there's people being killed to where, not too long ago New Haven was ranked as one of the top 5 most dangerous cities. So definitely understand where you come from there. But the question in the chat here comes from a viewer by the name of Nancy Eileen. And we see these things often play out in television. Of course, I'm a child of Law and Order, as I often like to joke. And she asked, does the show Chicago Fire, which I'm sure you've seen, portray half of what the firefighters and police go through? Keith, I'm curious.
Well, first of all, good evening, Nancy, wherever you're from. Thanks for the comment. I here and there have looked at Chicago Fire, but honestly, I never really watched these kind of TV shows. Someone brought up this movie the other day. I don't even know the name of it, but it was The Dispatcher, and Chicago PD is out here, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med. I really don't look at those things because I see it as being, I don't want to even say anything negative because it's a cool TV show from the episodes I've seen, and it gets me all riled up, but it's not really reality, a lot of it, some things they'll add in there a little bit through an advisor and it's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But when it gets all blown and dramatic, it's not really the reality here of Chicago. No, absolutely not.
Well, I wanted to bring it back to what the reason why I started on this was the protective service occupation, which is something that law enforcement gets, fire, EMS. That is the opportunity in case you are believed to be suffering for some type of PTSD. You're overstressed at work. It's part of your health insurance package that you get. Most municipalities offer that to law enforcement, and it's not something that's given to dispatchers. And Andrew French, Ella's brother, he's part of the a group that's trying to make to change that, to add that for 9/11 dispatchers, which to me makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, just hearing it, you know what I'm saying? Like, and when I look at you, I think, who's going to play you in the movie? I'm thinking Denzel's son. He's got a son, right? But by the way, didn't Denzel Washington play like some blind 911 dispatcher or something like that? One of those?
Well, listen, if they're looking at this now, just put me in the movie, okay? Because I'm all real. But let me just piggyback on that. In terms of first responders, yes, I've been all of them. I've been the police. I've been EMS as an EMT. We also have paramedics. And I've also worked as a firefighter. And just on the ambulance, I pulled up and we had a couple of people ejected from a car. And an infant was one of those victims. And even though I was right up close and personal with this lifeless baby, which was very traumatic and sad, the other units who showed up for the other victims who never even saw the child and their victims survived, the moment we were done at the hospital, all 6 of our ambulances, they sent all of us home with pay after we did a nice debriefing, and they said, see you guys in 3 days, and then if it's not enough time, take some more time off. And it's all paid. And they offered mental health services. That was on the ambulance. Same thing with the fire department. Same thing with the police department. And with this situation here with Ella French, there's still police officers in the city of Chicago to this day who are still off duty because what they saw when I told them to take that damn vest off and do this and do that and just think about as you're hearing and listening to that. And this is why I'm able, as hard as it is for me to listen back to that clip over and over again, every time I listen to it, I take me out of the scenario. It's not about me. I'm listening to what I'm telling these officers, which is take that vest off and do this. So I'm putting myself in the mindset of the officer looking down at the lifeless partner, friend, colleague, crying, trying to do compressions. And same thing with Carlos Yanez, not knowing if he was going to survive, being shot in the head, the brain, his eyes gone and everything else. So I put myself in the situation of them. Those are the real heroes. But guess what? They're offered mental health services and paid time off. And even to this day, which is great, many of them are off duty and getting those resources. And guess what? That doesn't necessarily take things away. They will still live with that for the rest of their lives. They will still have different things, but they're able to have resources to help them. In terms of a 911 call taker or dispatcher, and we hear this all day long and deal with this all day long, we don't have any of that. And I'll tell you why. We are not considered on paper first responders. We're not considered first responders on paper. And that's a problem. It's a problem because we're not able to get certain shifts as to how we kind of like to work. You know, we're working 6-day work weeks sometime, then we get days off canceled. So then we're working 7-day work weeks. Our vacation days are taken away. So then our vacations are gone. Our regular off days are gone. Anytime anything happens within this city or across the country that indirectly affects the city, everything's canceled. And so it's very hard to come to work and get mandated every single day to stay at 12 hours as opposed to 8 hours now. It's very hard. And so we're forced to take sick days and say, hey, I'm sick. And then they write you up. Then they want to suspend you, you know, and dealing with that and having to come to your family or your friends and you don't have a freaking outlet. And all you can think about is, oh my God, I got to get right back up to work. And you can barely even process yourself because you can't even sleep. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. And we need to do better with our politicians in getting us on board as being actual first responders and not just administrative clerical workers, which is essentially what we are, you know. But the mayor and other politicians can get on the radio or the radio or the TV show and the news, and they can say, oh my God, thank you so much. We really appreciate our first responders and our dispatchers and what they do. No, you don't respect us or appreciate us because you're not out here fighting. Mm-hmm. You are the main direct one that can make this happen, but you don't give two craps about us. And I'm very vocal with saying that because it's the truth.
Let me just mention this. For those of you who want to help, or if you ever notice this on something that you're voting for, it's called the Federal 911 SAVE Act of 2021. That would change the designation and add dispatchers, 911 dispatchers, so they can get the type of mental health help they need if they do need it. So once again, it's the Federal 911 SAVE Act of 2021.
And let me just say, you know, voting yes on that. And when we say we're getting mental health services, that allows us to go do what we have to do, whether it's talking to someone or just having a day or two off just to recompose ourselves so that we're able to go back, sit down, ready for you on your worst day if you just so happen to call. And we can do everything in an effective and efficient way as we would like to always do. But, you know, you guys can relate to this, whether you're a police officer, teacher, whatever. When you're having a bad day or something, you need to get away sometime, you know. So if you imagine yourself going to work and you can't do that, you're not going to perform at your best. And it's not because you necessarily don't want to, but maybe your body won't even allow you to, and you're tired, you're exhausted. So we need this, you know. So I do appreciate you bringing that up.
There are two things I wanted to get to. One is another question in the chat that I'll read momentarily. But I guess in moments of tragedy, you often look for the silver lining. And maybe the silver lining, or at least one of the silver linings in the aftermath of something like this, is that it can be a watershed moment for the mental health of first responders. I mean, here in New York, we're grappling with the death of another NYPD officer by suicide. He was found shot dead. He had shot himself in the head in his car in Long Island. Who knows what he saw in his 9 years in the job, as the New York Post article mentioned, that led him to decide my best bet is to put this gun to my head and pull the trigger. And it's not just him. How many dispatchers do we know, or maybe not know of, that have taken their lives because of similar situations? So if you're going to say there are many things about the progress of society that are not good, but one thing that is good is the emphasis on mental health. And the mental health effort has to be all encompassing. It can't just be relegated to those that struggle with it because of things that they're born with, though I'm certainly not knocking them. We need to help them too. It's also needs to be relegated to those who go out there every day and not just put their lives on the line as police, as fire, as EMS, but also those who have to listen to these moments of distress and listen to people at their worst day in and day out for years, not days, weeks, months, years at a time. And Rochella Pranzo, who is the wife of the great Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, aforementioned earlier, asked, Keith, can you tell if a call is not legitimate? And if so, how do you handle them?
Yes, and good afternoon or good evening to you as well. Thank you for the question. But yeah, sometimes you can. Sometimes you can. We have a lot of prank callers who call in. You do have a lot of mental individuals who will call in. You know, they're at nursing homes and different things of that nature, and they will call in, just call in, call in, call in. So you kind of know, you know. But then there are some situations where something can sound like it's fake or off. Um, you can't really push that to the side. You got to really try to dig, you know. And so sometimes you'll get those and then they'll hang up. You're whispering into the phone. So what I try to do my best of is I'll try to pin down a location. Sometimes they don't tell you a location, but if they're calling from a landline, some of the technology we do have, it can pinpoint at least a block that they're on. So I will always dispatch it out to a police officer at a minimum to go and do a check the well-being, and they'll go house by house, make sure no one's out there, you know. And there has been situations where things have been like that, a burglary in progress or a rape in progress or all types of different things. So it's kind of hard, you know, especially in the day and age now where everyone is thinking about liability. Even sometimes when you know this is a prank call, guess what? We still have to respond. We still have to respond.
Go ahead, Mark.
You want to let's do the commercial, and then because we got 9 minutes left, we'll do the commercial and then we'll come back and close out the show. What do you think?
Sure, sounds good.
All right, folks.
Well, if you're ever in trouble, I highly suggest you don't get in trouble. But if you do not call any other attorney. You know what I like to say, everyone. That is, hurry. Call Joe Murray. Joe Murray's based in the greater New York area. He's easy to reach. He's a all-encompassing attorney, gifted in the courtroom, and he knows both sides of the coin. Listen, he was a cop for 15 years, and now he's on the defense side as an attorney. So call him up, 646-838-1702. That's his telephone number for the office. Cell phone, 718-514-3855, or email him, joe@jmurray-law.com. Ever in a bind, don't call anybody else. Hurry and call Joe Murray.
I wanted to show this because after the incident, tragic death of police officer Ella French and Keith's tremendous job handling the airwaves, it became kind of people took notice, and he became quite a person popular on Twitter here. And here's a Beantown cop. His name is Keith Thornton. # Keith Thornton. Sir, you were calm in the storm, the steady voice that kept them focused, the man that was paramount in catching our sister's killers, and the rock that stabilized an entire city. You, sir, are a hero.
When somebody says something like that to you, how does that make you feel, Keith? What does that even...
It made me cry. He better start crying soon, man.
Well, you know, I don't consider myself a hero. You know, I've always done this. This is just a different title that I have, if you will. You know, I've always been very, very involved with public safety and just helping people. And there's a lot of people like me. And I want to really commend the hospital staff at University of Chicago as well. You know, the nurses and doctors, phlebotomists, everyone, even to the transporters who's wheeling our guys in and out. These are the true heroes that are out there in the field. And you know, look at them right there, you know. Those are the true heroes. I was just out there doing my job, and my name's Keith Thornton, and that's who I am. You know, I'm no hero. I'm just myself. And I am fortunate for having people feel that way, and I do appreciate them, and I just hope that I can continue doing great work.
Absolutely.
So in New York City, we had a mayor. He's hopefully he's going to be gone by he's going to be gone by January, but hopefully he'll just stay quiet until it's time to leave. I doubt he will, but it's like, for example, we had a female that was raped in Central Park, which is, you've been to New York. It's our biggest park in the city. The crime rarely doesn't happen often in there, as often as it does throughout the rest of the city or throughout other parks. You know, it's the lowest crime, and it's a huge park too, by the way. But when something like a rape happens over there, since it's in, like right in the middle of you got Central Park West, and then you have Fifth Avenue. So it's like we're wealthy people. That's the park they play in. You know, so you have to pay very special attention to it. Lady was raped in the park. Thank God they caught the perp, but the mayor never mentioned it. It's like they don't want to talk about anything that is going to skew their agenda, and police enforcement is not on his agenda. When I watch Chicago, and I see your mayor, Lori Lightfoot, I'm wondering to myself, is it the same thing over there? Is she talking? Does she acknowledge the crime, the shootings? Is she acting like she cares?
Acting is a very interesting word there. She's definitely acting. Um, there's so much crime going on here, and what really bothers me, and I can't get into details, but what really bothers me, just being a citizen here in Chicago, but also someone who does work for the city and knowing what's going on, dispatching certain calls, it really pisses me off to look at the news and hear these individuals who are management within our city saying that crime is down. And these are down, and car robberies and carjackings are down, and criminal sexual assaults are down. It's, excuse my French, bullshit, because it's not down. Certain management throughout the Chicago Police Department, as officers bring certain reports in that are a higher grade felony, they're making them weasel their way down to a misdemeanor of some sort.
We do that
let's
too.
do it this way, let's do that. And that's nonsense, And so if I got to be the one to kind of call it out here in Chicago, then I will, because it's wrong, because the citizens out here and everywhere else deserve to know the truth. And it's not safe here. There's many, it used to be, kind of like LA with the Compton, that one district, it used to be like that. Oh, it's the South Side here in Chicago. Oh, it's everywhere now. It's all downtown.
Oh, wow.
And here's to answer your quick question. Downtown's the same thing. It's very rich. You got all your people down there, and she protects the hell out of the city in terms of downtown. But she takes resources from every single police district of the violent districts of where people really need the police, and she ships them downtown. And so if you go downtown now in Chicago, since this last year and a half, you have officers who are mandated from their districts to work there, and they're sitting on every single block, 2-3 cars on every block throughout the city of Chicago, on the lake, and all these prestigious little shopping districts, and they have to sit there their entire shift like ducks. Meanwhile, over in Keith's world, over in John's world, Mark's world, and Mike's, district, where all hell is breaking loose, there's not a police car that I can dispatch, because we only have 3 cars in the entire district of 10 plus miles. So when an officer now needs help, such as Ella's case, guess what? No one can come. They're coming from a further distance now, because all the officers assigned in this district are way downtown doing diddly squat. It's not the officer's fault. It's coming from management. So it's a whole lot of nonsense going on. But if we protect that downtown area where the money's at, then we're protecting my position as mayor, because I'm going to get reelected in with the money that's coming in and donating to me. That's how I feel, and that's the reality.
You're seeing something similar play out in the city, in that Times Square is heavily protected. And listen, I get it. In a post 9/11 New York, you do have to make sure that landmarks are protected. I'm not saying leave them exposed. But even in Times Square, there was a shooting recently in which you had a 4-year-old girl get hit. Thankfully, she didn't die, and she'll be okay. And she was a warrior of a little girl. But nonetheless, cops that could have been on certain corners spotting illegal guns that they're trained to spot as part of an anti-crime team cannot do that, because we have to be in Times Square to make sure that the naked cowboy doesn't have any problems. And God bless the naked cowboy. I got nothing against him. But at what cost is that going to come when you have people not only getting hurt, as in the case of the 4-year-old girl, but in Ella's case, getting killed?
Yeah.
That had to do with them.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, we have tourists. That's why the cops are. You can't have people getting shot in Times Square. That's the tourist hub. So that's why all the cops were there, and that shooting, as well as there was a lot of shootings. We were like an apocalypse during the pandemic, where Times Square was empty. It looked like Will Smith walking down with the shotgun and the dog from that movie, and so. Now that it started picking up again, you had the clash of the two worlds. You said all the crazies that are still out, and now the tourists started coming back, and they had to put the police out there to quiet it down, so we can build up back our tourism over here, because we rely on it. It's an expensive city to live in.
That's true. But all I'm saying here is, if we're going to allocate officers to an area, and I agree, if all hell's about to break loose in downtown, boom, get everyone over there. But let's put those same initiatives in effect for when you hear a couple of gunshots here from the shot spotter, and then you hear another shots fired in the area. Well, you know what? Let's get some units going that way because these people are acting up and something's about to go sideways. So let's go and saturate this area, this neighborhood, so we can already kind of proactively, before anything happens, we can already diminish that. Let's give the rest of the city here an opportunity to be just as downtown is. That's all we're asking. But I really do appreciate you bringing all of this up, guys.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out to sit with us. Folks, I just want to give you a reminder, if you enjoyed tonight's show and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Ring the bell. We also have YouTube memberships. They start off, they're all categorized, just like the highest one is still dipped in butter, I imagine, is polished my rack.
Heated dipped in butter.
Well, that's the high, dipped in heated butter. But we still do have a Patreon as well. The Patreon is a police off the cuff. If you want to help out the show, and so we continue doing what we're doing over here, please, we'd love for you to join. We also have some merch on the YouTube page, some really cool stuff, some mugs, and some shirts, some hats, and stuff like that. And I'm trying to think if there's anything. Let's just give a shout out to the comments one more time.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Michelle Serino, thank you for joining us tonight. Rachel Pranzo, always great to have you. Factual Breakdown. Angela and Joe have their podcast. What's it? Do you remember the title of it?
Allegedly Guilty.
Allegedly Guilty. If you enjoy our show, check that out. Allegedly Guilty. That's Joe Murray's podcast with Angela. Tracy Janine, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy Janine.
Christine Knight is here as well. Joe Sanchez, the arrest machine, is here. He was.
Joe Sanchez is here. Hey,
Joe was a cop in the 60s and 70s.
He said you should be the mayor of Chicago, not to mention New York City. Listen, you did you mention that? Do you have aspirations to go into politics?
Well, I tell you what, anyone who's listening right now, whether you're not in Chicago or you are, I want you guys to go on my website, and it's www.healchicago.net. Once again, that's www.healchicago.net. There's a lot of healing that we have to do here. And I'm very pro-police, but more than anything, guys, I'm just pro-human being. Anyone who's out there doing the right thing, that's trying to get by these days, that's who I'm for. And so there is a lot to come with Keith Thornton. I'm not saying anything as of yet, but I'm just going to do what I've continued doing, and I'm allowing God to continue to elevate me in the ways that he wants to do. And so I'll keep it as that. But God bless you all. Anyone who's listening right now, it just shows that you guys, you want to be at the table. You want to hear the conversation. And that just speaks very many great volumes as to who you are. So come on and join me on this initiative because, like I said, it's not just here in Chicago, it's everywhere, but there's great people out there. You're one of them. And I really thank you all for even supporting just all of what we all do. Thank you.
Well, I just want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Next week, we won't have a show because it's going to be Thanksgiving. And please remember, keep Ella French and her family. She won't be joining them at the table this year because that tragedy, that horrible shooting. But the hero that's with us tonight, Keith Thornton, we wish you the best. Thanks for joining us. Mike Colon, anything else?
Well, I just want to say that we dedicate this episode to the memory of Officer French, for sure, and all police officers and firefighters who we have lost in the last year in the line of duty. This one goes out to all their families. On my end, as far as my show is concerned, I'm wrapping up the year as strong as I can. Check out former Chief of Department for the NYPD, Terry Monahan. Jeff Greenfield, veteran journalist, November 30th. Retired NYPD bomb squad detective Rich Teamsma, who helped foil a terror plot in Sunset Park, Brooklyn in 1997. No shows on my end in December. I'll be on hiatus, but stay tuned for January when I'll come back with some new ones.
All right, folks. On behalf of Police Off the Cuff After Hours, thank you so much, Keith Thornton Jr., for sitting in with us. All the best to you. God bless. And you're a hero, brother. Keep doing God's work.
Excellent.
And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Stay safe, everyone. See you around.